He has been ranked among the top 10 business thinkers in the world, alongside Michael Porter and Clayton Christensen by Thinkers 50. Author of 5 provocative books and 3 long-running New York Times bestsellers, he will articulate a cheat sheet for today's CEOs. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on stage Mr. Daniel H. Pink.
Thank you. Is the clicker up? Is the clicker up here? The slide advancer? Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. I want to really thank the folks at Outlook India for inviting me here. They've been incredible hosts on a number of different levels. So congratulations to them on their 10th anniversary, and thank you again for the honor of being here. I came to India for the first time almost 30 years ago. It was 1988. The previous year, I spent a year in graduate school in law, and after 1 year of law school, I decided not to go back. And instead, because I'd worked over the summer, I had some money in my pocket. It went a long way for a young American guy in India, and I spent 6 or 7 months just traveling all through India. It wasn't like a Steve Jobs spiritual quest at all. I just wanted to get out of law school. And I managed to see a huge portion of the country as a very, very young man. I was in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, I was in Calcutta, Varanasi, Delhi, Agra, Bombay, Pune, Goa, Kerala. I spent a lot of time in Rajasthan. I wrote an article about the Pushkar Camel Festival, which is pretty extraordinary. I live in Washington, D.C. There are no camel festivals in Washington, D.C. There are things that sort of feel like camel festivals, but they're not quite the same thing. And so India, as a very young man, has left a very, very strong imprint on me. And so as a consequence, I'm always eager to come back. And each time I come back, I realize how different the country is. And I'm reflecting on it now, almost 30 years later, how incredibly different this country has become in a very, very short space of time. And it might be easier for an outsider, a foreigner, to see. So I remember 1988, walking around, there were only 2 kinds of cars. There was that big bulbous Ambassador, and then there was another kind of car, Fiat, yeah, 2 kinds of cars. Now you go around here, there are all kinds of cars. I mean, everybody still honks all the time, but they're honking in a wide variety of cars. I remember trying to make a phone call to the United States. I called my parents back in the United States once during that time. Once. It was something like a $50 US phone call that I had to make an appointment for. All right, now you just go around anywhere in this city or even in, outside of the urban areas, you have people who are carrying around with them in their pocket the ability to make a phone call essentially anywhere on the planet. Oh, and that little thing is also a computer more powerful than existed in the world in 1988. I mean, it's just extraordinary. You think about it politically. That was back in the worlds of the days of the Cold War. And India was working both sides of the street in the Cold War. Hey, we like you, we like you, we like you. Now that whole kind of framework has been destroyed. When the minister was talking about the difficulty of doing business here, 1988 was no picnic, believe me. That was pre the 1991 reforms. But I think the thing that really sticks out for me, which I've seen here, is the demographics. You have 500 million people in this country who are 25 and under. 500 million people. Young India would be the 3rd largest country on the planet if it was its own separate country. Really, so again, if you live in a place, sometimes the changes aren't as apparent. If you're a foreigner and you only come back periodically, you really see these changes, and they are profound. And so today, I don't want to talk so much about those changes. Mahalakshmi asked me to do a cheat sheet for CEOs, to give some advice to CEOs. I said, okay, I'll give a suggestion. I'll give a suggestion. I'm just going to want to give, today I just want to give one suggestion. One suggestion, and it's really a suggestion not for the old folks like me and many of you, but it's a suggestion for the younger folks. It's a suggestion maybe for you leaders on how to create the conditions for these younger folks. And just to make it super, super distilled, what I want to do, very simply, is tell you how to win a Nobel Prize. Okay, so that's my job here today. I'm going to tell you how to win a Nobel Prize. Okay, that's the Nobel Prize. It's pretty cool, right, if you had one of those. I do not. So I'm going to tell you how to win a Nobel Prize, and that's going to give us a lesson. Just one suggestion here. So here are two guys who won the Nobel Prize. Andrei Geim, Konstantin Novoselov. Anybody ever heard of these guys? Okay, so very good. Why would you? These guys won, seriously, these guys won the Nobel, a few years ago, the Nobel Prize in Physics. The Nobel Prize in Physics. Nobel Prize in Physics is pretty good, right? I mean, I have 3 kids. If one of my kids called me up in 20 years and said, hey, Dad, I just won the Nobel Prize in Physics, I would say, okay, not bad, that's good, right? Nobel Prize in Physics. They isolated something known as, you might have heard of this, something known as graphene. Graphene. Graphene is so some of you seem to recognize this. Graphene is a substance that is 1 atom thick. Just think about that for a moment. I mean, I can't obviously do it with my fingers, 1 atom thick, but something like 70 times the strength of steel. Not bad, right? That's pretty good, right? So it's a huge advance in material science. Huge numbers of commercial applications. It's an enormous breakthrough in material science. Just to give you a sense of it for the non-scientists in the room, here's how here's how it was described by the New York Times. If scaled up to the thickness of plastic refrigerator wrap, a sheet of graphene stretched over a coffee cup would support the weight of a truck bearing down on a pencil point. Yeah, okay, so again, not bad. Huge breakthrough. So how did these guys isolate graphene? How did these guys make this breakthrough? We all want breakthroughs, we all want innovations. How did these guys do it? And they won a Nobel Prize. How'd they do it? Well, I'll tell you that, but first, I want to talk about artists. I want to talk about artists. Here's the thing. It's a huge change. I think that an artistic sensibility is one of the most important cognitive skills today. An artistic sensibility, right? Young people in the United States and Europe, certainly here in India, if they want to succeed economically, they have to have an artistic sensibility, right? It's not all about science and technology, it's about an aesthetic sensibility, an artistic sensibility. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. Artists do something that is I think the most important thing in the economy today. The most important thing in the economy today, the game-changing thing in the economy today, is to give the world something it didn't know it was missing. To give the world something it didn't know it was missing. That's where all the action is, right? Now, to a certain extent, so let's think about it in MBA terms, all right? You can think about category enhancement. There's an existing category, my firm fits into that category, I'm going to enhance my offering just a little bit to differentiate myself within that category. That's cool. That's an okay business. But the path to commoditization is very, very swift now. So what you want to be, obviously, is a category creator, right? A category creator. That's where all the action is. So if you think about, somebody here mentioned Uber, all right? I know I use Uber a lot. I mean, you guys, there's Uber, there's an Indian Uber equivalent. Yeah, okay, so has anybody used that in the last week? Okay, great. So who picks you up? Just somebody with their own private car? So just like, okay, yeah. So think about that service, okay? 2 years ago, were you sitting around saying, oh, I have such a problem. I just don't know what to do. I cannot find a complete stranger to pick me up and take me somewhere, right? You didn't imagine you needed that, but now people rely on it, okay? Giving the world something it didn't know it was missing. That's what artists do. That's what poets do. That's what painters do. That's what sculptors do. They give the world something it didn't know it was missing. So let's talk about a little science, just give you a little science here, about artists. It's a really important piece of research from a woman named Teresa Amabile at Harvard Business School. And here's what she did. She gathered 23 artists. This was done about 2 decades ago. 23, but it's an important study. 23 artists. And she had the artists, she said to the artists, please give me, randomly select 10 of your commissioned artworks and 10 of your non-commissioned artworks, okay? So let's talk about that difference here for a second. A commissioned artwork is if I am a person of means and I say to Niraj, Niraj, I love your oil paintings. I want you to make an oil painting for me for my house, and I'll pay you whatever it costs to commission an oil paint. I have no idea, but I'll pay you whatever for that. Okay, that's a commissioned work, right? You have a patron, the person commissions it, tells you what to do. A non-commissioned work is when the artist, him or herself, just does what they want to do. Right? Make sense? Commissioned work and non-commissioned work. So, what she did is she got 23 of these artists, they were painters, sculptors, and said, give us 10 commissioned works, 10 non-commissioned works, right? Then, so that's 20 works, 23 artists, 460 works of art. 460 works of art. The one thing, when I say 460, because I was doing the math in my head, just as a side note, the one thing that I totally cannot, I didn't understand it in 1988, and I don't understand it today. Locke and Crore. I just don't get it. Anyway, so 460 works of art. 460 works of art. She assembles an exhibit, like in a room like this. She invites a bunch of people who are art experts to come in and evaluate these works of art. They don't know where they came from, all right? These are art historians, gallery owners, other artists. Evaluate these works of art. 460 of them. Here's what she writes. Our results were quite startling. Now, those of you probably don't spend a lot of time reading social science journals, but this is about as excited as these guys get, okay? Our results were quite startling. What was startling about these results? Well, here's what they say. The commissioned works were rated, oh, there's that. The commissioned works were rated as significantly less creative than the non-commissioned works, yet they were not rated as different in technical quality. Let me rephrase that. The technical quality of the works, commissioned and non-commissioned, were similar. They were very good. These are people making a living in the fine arts. If you can make a living as a sculptor, you are a very good sculptor. There's no question about it. The commissioned works were the same, in the technical quality, were the same as the non-commissioned works. But over and over and over and over, it was the non-commissioned works that outsiders said were the breakthroughs. It was the non-commissioned works. They said, wow, I've never seen anything like that. That's so innovative. That's such a breakthrough. That's so cool. The non-commissioned works were the ones that were most innovative. That's kind of interesting, because it sort of goes against a lot of our intuitions about motivation. Our view of motivation is that you got to give somebody some kind of incentive in front of them, and that way they're going to do better. But in this case, when people knew they were going to get paid, versus they had no idea whether they were going to get paid, on average, the people who had no idea that they were going to get paid did more creative work. This is disturbing, especially to an American. This is very disturbing, right? What's going on here? Well, we can talk about it. If you have time for questions, I won't go into all the science on motivation, but this is kind of interesting, right? What we know about motivation after 50 years of research in behavioral science is this. There's a certain kind of reward we use in organizations and schools. I call it an if-then reward. If you do this, then you get that. If you do this, then you get that. If you do this, then you get that. 50 years of science tells us that if-then rewards are very good for simple, mechanical work with short time horizons. They were very, very effective. We love rewards. You put a reward in front of me or any human being, you got my attention. No question about it. You have my attention. But you have my attention in a very narrow way, like this. Because we love rewards so much, I want to go whoosh. Same body of research tells us that if-then rewards, though, are not so great for complex and conceptual work with long time horizons. Great for simple and short term, not so great for complex and long term. And this is rooted in that kind of research. So this is very peculiar. Artists do more creative work when it's non-commissioned than when it's commissioned. That's pretty curious. And then if you believe what I say before, that we want our young people especially to have an artistic sensibility, that's kind of interesting. Because if you look at workplaces all over the world, just think about workplaces and look at the tasks within a workplace. Almost everything that happens in every workplace is commissioned work. Think about that. Almost everything that happens in a traditional workplace is commissioned work. Somebody decides what needs to get done and tells someone else to do that. It's almost all commissioned work. And yet here we have this evidence showing that non-commissioned work is more creative. But things are changing. Things are changing. I want to give you a hint. It's not changing in a big way. It's changing out here on the edges. That's where all the action is. All the action is on the edges. And then things move to the center. Let me give you some examples of things doing a little different. So here's a company called Atlassian. It's an Australian software company. They do something really cool. Once a quarter on Thursday afternoons, they say to their software developers, for the next 24 hours, go do whatever you want. Do it the way you want, do whatever you want, do it with whomever you want. The only thing we ask is that you show what you've created to the rest of the company in a fun meeting on Friday afternoon. They call these things ship-it days. Ship-it days. Work on whatever you want, assemble your crew, you've got 24 hours, go. There's no financial reward or anything. Turns out, all kinds of new innovations have come out of this 24-hour period. Ideas for new software, fixes to existing software, improvements to internal processes that had otherwise never emerged. It's kind of curious. Give you another example. Intuit, which is an American-based consumer software company. The consumer software business has changed significantly. In the old days, people would have those little platters to install their software. Then it became downloads, but now you have so many people using mobile devices. This very complicated consumer software had to be available on mobile devices almost immediately after they had figured out a way to have it elegantly downloadable or used through a cloud-based system. Right? They're working their tails off to say, how can we download this software? How can we make it work in the cloud? And their customers are clamoring, but I want it on my Android. I want it on my iPad. Well, Intuit, almost from its inception, has had something called 10% time, where people could spend 10% of their time working on whatever they wanted. Now, this sounds a little kind of touchy-feely, California, super cool, groovy. It's not. It's very hard-headed, because Intuit is not signing away the intellectual property rights to what's created during that 10% time. So here's what the head of innovation at Intuit told me not too long ago. He said, after our CEO declared mobile was key to our strategy, none of our business units were able to change direction on a dime, change direction quickly. But our employees using 10% time created 7 mobile apps before any other formally funded mobile projects even got started. Let's give you one more example, okay? There are a lot of examples of this around the world. I've chosen an Australian example, 2 American examples. The second American example is this. This is a very mundane example. A lot of times, when you look at, when we're searching for innovation, we always want to go to the big marquee-named companies. And there's a huge number of hidden heroes in innovation all over the world. People you never heard of, companies you never heard of. Here's something that isn't even a company. All right, this is a credit union. It's a nonprofit. Okay, it's a credit union. It's like a bank. It's like a bank for individuals and small businesses. There was a young woman there who heard about ship-it days. This is a young woman who had a customer service department of 6 people. 6-person customer service department. They would answer phones from credit union members. Sometimes they had one teller station, bank teller station, credit union teller station. They would do that. She says to her boss, "Boss, I would like to have a ship-it day for my team of 6. One day where we can spend 24 hours working on whatever we wanted. We can come up with some great innovations. Wouldn't that be super cool?" And her boss said, "Absolutely not." So she did something else. She said to her team, a team of just 6 people. This is a young woman, 28 years old, team of 6 people. "Team, here's what I'd like you to do. Every week, I would like you to leave for 1 hour. Go somewhere else. Think about a better way to run this place. Think about something I'm not doing as a leader that I should be doing. Think about something that we're not doing for our members or customers that we should be doing. Think about whether there's some kind of internal process that doesn't make sense that we can get rid of. 1 hour every week. Just leave. If you're assigned to phone duty, then I'll cover the phones for you. If you're assigned to the teller station, I'll do the teller station for you. 1 hour every week." She calls it a genius hour. A genius hour. 1 hour every week. Suddenly, this little credit union, this is in the state of Washington, is coming up with all these innovations that credit unions all over North America are copying. So let's look at these examples here. Atlassian, ship-it days. Intuit, 10% time. This credit union, genius hour. What do they have in common? This would be the interactive part of the presentation. What do they have in common? Just shout it out. No, exactly. Exactly. We got it right away. It's non-commissioned work. It's wow, how about that? Think about that. Atlassian, 361 days of commissioned work, 4 days of non-commissioned work. Intuit, 90% commissioned work, 10% non-commissioned work. This credit union, 39 hours a week of commission, 1 hour a week of non-commissioned work. Isn't that interesting? They're doing some non-commissioned work, which of course leads back to these guys. Oh, I didn't put their picture there. Because let's go back to our friends, Gaiman and Vasilov. What did they do? Well, they have a laboratory. They're of Russian descent. They work in the United Kingdom. They work at the University of Manchester. They have a laboratory. The laboratory, they have a lot of work. They write grants for research, and they have to fulfill those. They have papers due in journals. But at this laboratory, they also do something else, something that they call I need to have a genius hour to operate the slider. Something that they call Friday evening experiments. Friday evening experiments. Each week, they take 2 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours a week, to work on whatever they want. The rules for Friday evening experiments are pretty severe. 1, it cannot be anything that you have funding for. 2, it cannot be anything where you have a paper due. 3, in the words of one of these guys, you're allowed to do whatever you want as long as it's not boring. Okay? Friday evening experiments, 2 or 3 hours every week just to explore, test out stuff, see what it's like. And they usually do them on Friday nights, I guess because they're physicists. Guess what? They made their breakthrough on graphene not in their regular work. They never had a grant for it. They never had a paper due. They never did any of the formal scientific investigation of it. They were curious about this thing. They played around with it, and they made their breakthrough on graphene in their Friday evening experiments, not in their regular work. They won the Nobel Prize for it's non-commissioned work. Think about that. Think about that. In fact, the fellow Gime who is on this side of it He's either the youngest or the second youngest person to win a Nobel Prize in the sciences. They want it for non-commissioned work. So, my challenge to you, and my challenge to you as an ambassador to the 500 million young Indians here, is in your organizations, is this. Carve out a little time for non-commissioned work. You don't have to go crazy, right? I'm not saying let anybody do whatever they want all the time. I'm saying 4 days a year, 10% of your time, an hour, something like that. Carve out that time for non-commissioned work. I am pretty convinced that if we were to come back here in 10 years or 15 years, that this is going to be standard operating procedure at most companies. That they're going to realize that what really matters is the ability to create new categories, come up with things the world didn't know it was missing. We have to execute, we have to do our stuff that gets revenue right now. That's the bulk of what we do, but we got to make some space for this non-commissioned work. Now, a couple of quick things about this. This makes people uneasy. This makes people uneasy. Part of it is this. They say, well, some people will just screw around, not do anything. So, okay. My view on that is that that doesn't sound like a work structure problem. That sounds like a hiring problem. But we can talk about that if you want later on. But that's not the big thing that people don't like. The big thing that people don't like, and here I think there is a small generational difference. What people really don't like, especially people, I'm 52, people my age, people older, you know, there's something they really, really don't like about this non-commissioned work. And this guy, Geim, said it very well. He said this: 90% of those Friday evening experiments don't work. Don't work. A lot of them will come to nothing. A lot of them will come to nothing. This non-commissioned work is an unbelievably effective, efficient, and powerful way to generate bad ideas. It's extraordinary for that. But the only way to generate good ideas and breakthroughs is to generate a lot of ideas. So those of us in our generation, if we want to do this, and I want to basically use this Outlook India's platform to challenge you to carve out a tiny piece of time for non-commissioned work, but I want to warn you and I want you to steel yourself because 90% of it isn't going to go anywhere. But that's the price for the 10%, because a 10% is worth 100x. But you have to be willing to tolerate this, and it's very difficult. The older you get, people become more conservative as they get older. Why? They have more to conserve. And so you have to tolerate this. Let me give you one more word from the other fellow who says, and I think this is so when you're skittish about this, oh, I don't know, 90% are going to fail. But remember, 10% are going to work, and they're going to work big. Here's what Geim says, and again, this is a Nobelist here. He says, human progress has always been driven by a sense of adventure and unconventional thinking. And that's what it's about. That's what this non-commissioned work does. It's a sense of adventure. You don't know what's going to happen. That's why it's interesting. You don't know the end story. And you got to be a little unconventional. So, carve out some time for non-commissioned work. And if one of those 500 million Indians under the age of 25 one day wins a Nobel Prize, I will take full credit for it. Thanks for your time.